Hello and welcome to the HHH Racing Podcast, episode 48. This is your host, Howard Kravitz. We have a special edition as we are live here in the United States in the Chicago area. It is 6 a.m. on the East Coast, 7 a.m. And in the UK, it is just past noon as we are only 2.5 hours away from the incredible meeting at Royal Ascot. Whether you're here in the United States or you're joining us in the UK or anywhere throughout the world, thank you so much for joining the HHH Racing Podcast today. The first thing you need to do, especially if you are new to the show, please make sure right there on the right side of your screen you subscribe. We need to have as many subscribers as possible. I greatly appreciate your support. This channel has only been around since February, and in that time we have over 15,000 views from people worldwide. I cannot thank you enough. Please make sure you subscribe, and after you do that, please hit that notification bell so you're aware when new content arrives on the show. Also, please make sure you follow me on Twitter at @HKravitz. You can see the spelling is right there on the screen there, at @HKravitz on Twitter. And also, you can email me at hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Again, that's hkravitzhorse@gmail.com. Again, you see it on the scroll below. A few housekeeping items we'd like to take care of, and then I cannot wait to have a fantastic guest coming in live from the UK to talk about the races today and everything Royal Ascot. I have a race day blog. If you're not familiar with my race day blog, it is a weekly blog. You will receive it every Saturday morning for races here in the United States. It's only $12.99 a month. It's a fantastic deal. Only about $3 per blog. So it's only about a little over £9 if you're in the UK. I know our guest has already subscribed to the Race Day blog. You get detailed information about a sequence, usually on Saturdays here in the United States. We cover what we call a pick five, which is 5 races in a row. I also talk about other stake races throughout the country and give you some great betting ideas and tips for those races. So please, and in addition to that, by the way, when you subscribe to the Race Day blog, a portion of that will go to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, which supports horses after they retire in their next career. So not only are you helping yourself at the tipping windows, but also you have a chance to make a donation as well to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. All of the information is on that Patreon website that you see below, and also below this video player in the description. Again, in the description of this broadcast, you can see detailed information about the Race Day blog. Please make sure you sign up for that. In addition, for those of you that follow, especially in the United States, I am part of the In the Money podcast, as you well know. Go to inthemoneypodcast.com and you can see my blog on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sundays. I write for Canterbury Park in Minnesota. Please follow me at inthemoneypodcast.com and you can find out all about my blog there. Folks, again, we have a great show. I can feel the energy and excitement. We are not that far away from the first race at Royal Ascot. So, listen, I need to bring in a guest from the UK. And this gentleman reached out to me. This is the great thing about YouTube. I did not know this gentleman before I started my podcast and live stream. He reached out to me. He enjoys the show. He has won a tipping contest at Royal Ascot previously, which had over 400,000 contestants. He has also covered horse racing for the Guardian newspaper and works at Chester Racecourse and UK. I'd like to bring in the one and only Davy Lane. Davy, how are you today, sir?
I'm fine, Howard. Good to talk to you. Finally.
Good to talk to you. I'm so happy you're on today. Tell us where you're actually from right now. Where are you broadcasting from?
Yeah, I'm broadcasting from the Liverpool area in the north of England. I've never been to Ascot, only the tracks in the north of England, which would be Chester, Haydock, Aintree, and York. and for my money, York is actually a superior racetrack to anything in the United Kingdom. So that's just for anyone making holiday trips, with the exception perhaps of Chester. But Chester's a quirky little circular track, which is a whole other story.
And I believe Chester has pretty tight turns, left-handed turns, not too dissimilar from some of the racing here in the States. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, very much so. And it's also distinct from other race courses, and it runs its own pari-mutuel. So it broke away from everyone else and runs its own bets with a takeout percentage, etc. So it blazes a few trails and has big crowds because it brings in people from the north of England, Liverpool and Manchester primarily, and then Wolverhampton, Birmingham area. So it's quite very accessible for people in the north and the Midlands, and it's great for the ladies. It's great for the drinking and the fun because you can see all the action. You really are in a sort of a sort of amphitheater, if you will.
Terrific. Well, listen, we greatly appreciate you coming on the show and helping out everyone throughout the world, especially those in the States that might be watching live or will be watching as they wake up, as it is pretty early in the States here this morning. Yeah. If you are watching live, please make sure on the right side of the screen you type in chat. We want to have a lot of comments. I'll be more than happy to bring your comment up on the screen so we can have a lively conversation here with Davy about his tips for Royal Ascot, not only today, but this week. So the more that you comment on the right side of the screen with your chats, the more interesting our conversation will be.
Yeah,
Davy,
go on. I recently
please go ahead.
A few guys who we had a competition. There's a competition run by Empire Bloodstock, EI Bloodstock, for Maidan, and hopefully some of those guys will be pumping in. I actually won this year's competition. Not as big as the TV one on Royal Ascot, but it was, maybe about 500 people. So another feather in the cap. But
boy, congratulations!
I'm no grasshopper.
With all that money you're winning.
I'm just a regular guy who gets most of it wrong and sometimes right. That's the game,
It sure sounds like you're getting it right most of the time. With all those big winnings you're winning from these contests, you can fly that private jet over the States and check out some races here this summer.
Actually, no. The UK competition on the TV was when it was a modest 4-figure sum. They're now paying $250,000 to win the same competition. So I was 2 years ahead of the game.
I understand. Well, it's and to win any contest is really fantastic. Yeah. Davey, I know there's a lot of people that are going to be interested in placing bets and your tips here today. But before we want to do that, I want a chance for people to get to know Davey a little bit. So Davey, we're going to go ahead as I go ahead and take some things off the screen. I have a world-renowned segment on my show, and it is called 10 Minutes to Post. 10 minutes to post, ladies and gentlemen. These are going to be 10 rapid-fire questions, Davey. So again, many things we want to get to today. These are going to be 10 rapid-fire questions. You're going to see them on the bottom of the screen. So if you can give just literally 5-second answers, and then we'll go ahead and start talking everything about Royal Ascot. So the first question, the favorite track that you've actually been to or attended anywhere in the world?
Yeah, York.
And is there a specific reason, very quickly?
It is just the sheer gravity of the place. York was formerly a sort of a capital of England in terms of the Vikings and what have you, of the north of England. So it has that sense. It has a sense of sort of a central part of a nation in the history, and it feels really meaningful when you go there. I've only been there a couple of times, but it's an important place.
Terrific. Do you have a favorite track that you follow here in the States?
In the States, yeah, I do. It's Fauna Park.
You have to talk. It's so funny you say that because most people that answer never would have come out of your mouth, I'm assuming, before the pandemic. So it's unfortunate, I suppose, that that's your favorite. But Fauna, for those of you who are not familiar with Fauna Park, is a very small track in the state of Nebraska. It was one of the few tracks running during the worst of the pandemic. And listen, Davey, Fauna was a very, very popular track here in the States because degenerate gamblers like myself and I'm assuming, have to place some bets somewhere. And that was one of the few plays. That's a great answer. Next question. Do you have a favorite type of bet, whether it's a bet that United States handicappers would be well known or something more that UK tipsters would be interested in?
UK handicappers will probably know this, but my favorite bet would be like a Heinz. and that would be a sort of a mix of what we call, it's called a Heinz because there are 57 possibilities, so 57 varieties, small stakes, but you would have a series of trebles, quadruples, 5 plays, and 6 timers, and they all accumulate into one pool if you pull it off. So I like to do that. So in other words, like a pick 6, you can find by what the track tells you the pick 6 is. Whereas a Heinz, you can choose which 6 races to play and then put them together.
That's interesting. I enjoy the betting pools in the UK. It's very different there, the types of betting, and I've learned a lot over the years. And the more TV exposure at Ascot and British Champions Day and other places, I think it's fascinating that more European bettors are interested in American pools and betting and vice versa. It's really a global phenomenon. It's really interesting. Next question. The best or most memorable horse racing event that you've attended?
The best, most memorable horse racing event? That would probably be the Silver Slipper in Rose Hill in Sydney. It's the world's richest 2-year-old race. And I attended that and had just one of those wild days out in the suburbs of Sydney. So that was memorable because it was a prestigious day and a great time. They have something in Australia called the First Four, which is a superfecta. And lo and behold, I believe the horse, I had the first 3 and I was in 4th place with about 2 yards to go when another horse took on Kieran McAvoy and knocked me out. So I have no idea, but it was a lot of money that just slipped through my hands, you know. So you always want the jockey to ride to the line, you know. That's
for sure. I hear Australians enjoy the horse racing, like to have a lot of fun, from what I understand. So let's go on to the next question. The best or most memorable non-horse racing sports event that you've ever attended?
That would be the European Champions League final in Istanbul, where a good friend of mine and he was in the States, and we met up in Istanbul, and we watched Liverpool, my team, come back from a 3-0 deficit at halftime to draw 3-3 and win the game on penalties, and that was the most memorable.
Fantastic. A bucket list track or race day event in the world you'd like to attend that you have not attended before?
The Melbourne Cup in Melbourne, Australia. Sure.
I've had many guests here. Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. There might be a little bit of delay, folks, just so you know, but I've had many guests. Melbourne Cup is right at the top of my list as well as Ascot. From what I've heard about the Melbourne Cup, obviously the Kentucky Derby here in the States is the race of the year, and the Melbourne Cup apparently puts the Kentucky Derby to shame. The Kentucky Derby is just a little small get-together, apparently, compared to what happens at the Melbourne Cup. It is the race that stops the nation, as you well know. That is what they dub it out there.
I have relatives down there, and I got to understand it, but I just never got to Melbourne, so it's definitely on the bucket list.
Terrific.
And it's still one of the races, despite maybe misgivings about how UK horses, European horses are over-entering the race. It still transcends the sport on a national level. And not many races do that around the world, even the premier races. Kentucky Derby does, and the Liverpool Grand National does. Maybe the Pellegrini in South America, the Durban July, but there are very few that actually transcend the sport. They go into a national consciousness. And the Epsom Derby used to do that in Britain, but it no longer really does that. So Royal Ascot sort of is still holding a position, and that's, you know, that may largely be because of the Queen, because a lot of non-racing people turn on the TV to see what the Queen is wearing.
Yes, we're gonna get into that conversation in just a minute. We just have a few more questions for Davy, folks, and then we're going to get into some very quick, broader questions about Royal Ascot, and then we'll get into our tipping. So if you're watching, please be patient. Again, thank you very much for joining the HHH Racing Podcast, whether it's midday there in Europe or early in the morning here in the States. Do you have a favorite horse of all time, Davy?
Yeah, I do. That would be Protectionist, a horse that won the Melbourne Cup and secured my biggest win of all time. So that would be why.
Terrific. That would make sense. Do you have a favorite jockey, sir?
A favorite jockey? Ooh, you've caught me on the hop there. Favorite jockey? I would have to go with.
Or perhaps a jockey sort of under the radar, an underrated jockey that you like to bet because perhaps they don't. You like to tip because perhaps they don't. That you can get a higher price with him or her.
I'm not. I'm not sure about that. I mean, oh God, a favorite jockey.
There's a guy named Dettori who I hear is pretty good out there.
Yeah, I would have to say Lester Piggott. I mean, not racing anymore.
Of
But
course.
I went to the Ark a couple of years ago. I was walking through the woods on the way to the Ark, about a mile and a half, where the traffic is limited because you need passes and what have you. And at a traffic light, a car pulled over with Swiss license plates. The windows were down, and as I walked by, there was a lady in the car. I smiled at her, and the man next to her was Lester Piggott.
Unbelievable.
So yeah,
That's a great story.
yeah, Lester
Unbelievable.
Piggott. So that's probably the guy. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite race to watch or tip here in the States?
A favorite race to watch in the States? It
Derby or Breeders' Cup or something that's well known out there.
Yeah, I like the Preakness. I like the Preakness because there's a certain sense of tradition and craziness about it.
Yeah.
One of my favorite movies of all time, a John Frankenheimer movie. There was a plot to take over the presidency, and all the admirals and generals, they had a secret code about who they were playing in the Preakness. And I remember watching that as a kid, as a teenager, and I always stuck in my head. So I was always interested in the Preakness. So
those of you watching in the UK that are not familiar, the Preakness is the second leg of our 3-year-old Triple Crown. It takes place in Baltimore, Maryland. 2 weeks after the Derby, and it's a little more of a casual atmosphere. It's a lot of more of a carnival atmosphere. It's a lot of fun. Last question for Davey, and then we're going to talk about quickly some topics involving Royal Ascot. Do you have a favorite personality on TV that covers horse racing?
Yeah, I would say Nick Luck.
He's fantastic. He has a podcast here in the United States as well. Talk a little bit why you enjoy Nick so much. I think he's fantastic as well.
Yeah, he's articulate. He's informed. He's clear. He's worldly. He's not narrow. He's not just focused on racing. He can see racing in the context of everything else that's going on in other sports and social, political, economic issues. He understands racing in the context that it's a global sport. It's interconnected with Asia, America, Africa. He sees the whole game. He's not narrow, and he's clearly head and shoulders. It's a shame, actually, he's not on the terrestrial TV in the United States.
We have our first question from a viewer, Jack Fain. Jack is actually from Louisiana, so he is up nice and early, one of our dedicated viewers here in the States. Jack, we're going to talk about not only today, but some races also later in the week. You're asking about what's going to be happening. Of course, this is a 5-day meet, so we'll be tipping or talking about some other handicapping some other races. But Jack, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Jack was actually on our show last week talking about some races. So we have some United States viewers already up and early here, Davey. Very excited about Royal Ascot. So there are a few very quick topics before we talk about the actual races that I know that we've talked previously through some emails that you'd like to mention. First of all, you mentioned just the popularity of Royal Ascot in general. You have some, I think, concerns with perhaps, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but when the Queen passes, which hopefully will not happen for a long time, but she is 90 years old, I believe. Yeah. Just the tradition of Royal Ascot, and what do you think, where do you see the future of Royal Ascot and the involvement with the Queen here going forward?
Well, the Queen, the news today is that the Queen is not attending Royal Ascot, which is the first time in a long time. So
that's big news over there, I would assume.
It is big news amongst all the horse racing people, and that will drift into the consciousness of the regular public by the lunchtime news broadcasts when they realise the Queen is not going to Royal Ascot. She's lost her husband recently, and she also we have a pandemic like everywhere else, and there's limited crowd there today. So, it's a combination of factors that she has horses running at the meeting. So I think the smart move is that they're going to sort of downplay it a bit and have her show up for a couple of days, which may be just a wise thing. She's an old lady. It's difficult. It's difficult enough. But without her patronage, despite the prestige of the meeting, these things can be affected by the global market. And if there are horse races that are worth more money in other parts of the world, eventually, will the prestige? They're trying to make Ascot a global focus, and they've done that with the help of Wesley Ward and some other people coming through. But will they stick with that if the money's all pointing to Asia and Australia? I'm not sure. For example, the marquee race at Royal Ascot is the Gold Cup. It's the £213,000 to the winner, $250,000. That's maybe like an eighth or something, or a tenth of what the Melbourne Cup will be. The
Melbourne Cup. I did a little math. The Gold Cup is around 500,000 US, and the Melbourne Cup is about 4.5 million.
Yeah, exactly.
US. So it's almost 10 times as much, the Melbourne Cup.
Exactly. So we have a Team Valor Gary Barber horse and it's declared. I have the runners and riders booked in now for the Thursday, and Spanish Mission. The known target for this horse is the Melbourne Cup. Now, if this horse wins the Gold Cup today over 2 miles 4, the Melbourne handicapper Greg Carpenter down in Victoria is going to make the horse at an is going to put the horse at an unraceable weight. So, despite me liking Spanish Mission, despite it winning last time a Group 2 race, the Yorkshire Cup, will it be running at full pelt to win the race today for that prize money when really the connections have a dream is to win the Melbourne Cup? I don't know. So. Yeah, and the same will be true for other horses in that race. I'm sure other horses, connections, and trainers have eyes on the Melbourne Cup. So how interested are they in winning that race? And that's the question. They're interested in keeping the horse fit, and they're interested in that. But winning it, it's another issue. So you have to bear that in mind when you're betting the race.
I know prize money has been a factor over there, especially through the pandemic. Another angle that I know you'd like to discuss, unfortunately because of COVID and then Brexit, is the fact there will not be many Irish horses running at Ascot this week. And if you could just talk about some of the, obviously UK will be very well represented, but perhaps not as many Irish runners and from other countries as well. If you could just touch on the reasons why a little bit that's happening this week.
Well, actually, there are a lot of Irish horses running. It doesn't seem to have been affected, but that's primarily because we're talking about. There's a difference between bucks and boku bucks. Like people have got big money, right? And this is the Coolmore people, so they're coming. But with Brexit, there's a lot more paperwork, and that sounds kind of like a cheap sort of saying, oh, you just fill in the paperwork, but there are like down payments to be made and deposits and this and that, the rest, and carnets. It's taking a bit more time to get the horses across. So for the big time Irish connections, there may not be a problem. For the smaller Irish connections, anyone who owns a racehorse has money, but the smaller ones who are making the trip, having to jump over those hurdles, that might be a clue to some spot plays, to some larger roughies, bombs as we call them. Why is a small time owner bringing a horse and going over those from Ireland or France or what have you? There's one today declared from Germany. It's a complete outsider, but Rip Van Lips is 100 to 1 shot coming from Germany for the Gold Cup on Thursday. Now, what's behind that. So that could be one to play in the tries below, for example, and there are others. There are others on that sort of category. Listen, there are a couple of hundred variables to figure out who's going to win a horse race, and we all can't go over them in 1 hour or what have you. But you can highlight 2 or 3 or 4 that you're sort of focused on, and see how those play. And I think maybe a way to find horses underneath in tries or bombs is get together a list of those Irish, German horses, maybe French later in the week, who are coming over, and they're not really boku bucks people, So that's
smaller connections, absolutely.
Yeah.
2 other quick topics that I want to discuss with Davy before we get into the handicapping. And this is something that we did not discuss through email, but I'm assuming you're familiar with Jim Boldrew, who's the trainer of Product Flair, who
Right.
made quite a, I don't know if accusation is the correct word, but sort of reiterated, I believe yesterday, within the last
Mhm.
24 to 48 hours, his concerns about doping and the drug issues. How big of an issue is it, do you believe, during in Europe right now? It's been somewhat related to the bombshell of
Yeah.
Lance Armstrong in the Tour de France, which of course
Yeah.
everyone remembers. So the doping issue in Europe right now, are those valid concerns?
I think they are. Maybe not in France where they seem to be stricter, but I'm sure it's the case in the UK and Ireland, um, for sure. And I mean, I've been on the receiving end of losing the equivalent of a six-figure pick six with a trainer in the UK who was subsequently banned, and my horse came second in a race. So that was Howard Jacobson a few years ago, a jumps trainer. So I don't think they've got to. I don't think they've got to grips with it. I think it's a big issue. I think Bolger is right, and if it was me, I mean, it sounds ridiculous, but I'd put the Hong Kong Jockey Club in charge of every jurisdiction for about 5 years so they can get themselves organized, because those guys know what to do.
They do not mess around out there. They are very strict. There's a
Yeah,
horse here in the States that you might have heard of called Medina Spirit, who probably cost me not six figures, but did it cost me five figures for sure, because I had the two, three, four, and fifth horse in the Derby. If any of those horses goes by Medina Spirit, who of course it looks like will be disqualified, unfortunately, from the Kentucky Derby. Boy, we
yeah,
could talk about this topic for a while. It's a real
yeah,
shame. Let's just hope horse racing throughout the entire world
yeah,
cleans up its act, because everyone wants to see fair racing everywhere for sure.
for
One
sure.
other topic I want to mention, and this is especially for those of us here in the States that are either watching live. As I see here on my screen, you can't see, we do have more people joining the show, whether it be here in the States or overseas. Thank you very much. Let's talk very quickly about some terminology that some people
Okay.
might hear and some difference between the United States racing here and over at Royal Ascot. I think the first important thing would be post positions. You folks over there, of course, call it the stalls. We call
Mhm,
it the gates. Can you
mhm.
talk a little about the high draw, low draw, and far side, stand side as people here in the States watch these races this week?
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of the variables I'm not paying much attention to this week. I think if the ground was softer, on the softer side of good, then I would be thinking more about higher numbers on the large six furlong handicaps and so on. But I think Ascot's a very fair track, both on the round track, both on the straight track. 5 furlongs to a mile. Um, I would not be worrying too much. I would be looking for clusters. I would be looking for horses that are drawn close to other good horses, and there you'll have a race within a race. And I really wouldn't care where that was, whether that was on the low numbers, the middle numbers, or the high numbers. That's what I would be looking at. Yeah,
It's quite amazing on the races that are on the straight, which most of them are, how they
yeah,
sort of break off there sometimes midway through the race. I
yeah,
remember the first time, literally the first time, oh, probably a good 20 years ago.
yeah,
I have my big 50th birthday this summer, so
yeah,
I've
yeah.
been
I'm
betting and
dangerously
watching for
close to that
30 years.
date.
I'm sorry?
I'm dangerously close to that milestone.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
hopefully it'll be as good a day for you as it will be for me this summer. But just how the sort of the seas part, I was like, where are they going? What are they doing? It was absolutely fascinating
yeah,
the first time I saw that. And from what I understand, the weather is absolutely gorgeous there
yeah,
today, and it's gonna be very nice also tomorrow, with a
yeah.
chance later tomorrow and into Thursday of some very heavy rain, from what I understand.
Right.
And something that U.S. handicappers need to understand is even when it's firm, they do water the course
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit there at Ascot. I know Wesley Ward, our best American trainer who goes to Ascot, always has concerns about watering the course too much. Can you please explain to the U.S. viewers why they water the course so much? Because here in the States, of course, they water our turf courses, but not nearly as much as they do at Royal Ascot.
That there's two sides of this argument. I mean, that may be a positive thing in terms of horse welfare, and stopping horses breaking down when it's getting too firm. And that's really why they do it. There's another argument that says what you're doing by doing that is you're impacting the breed, and the horse is not toughening up and getting it right. And again, to switch to another jurisdiction, the Japanese are, I think, ahead of the game on this. They rarely water the tracks. It's left as it is. I don't like it myself because you're trying to plan ahead, and you've got everything lined up, and it hasn't rained for a week, and there's going to be nice firm ground, and the next thing the groundsman has put an inch of water on the track, and I think I think they overwater, and
that's actually that's very refreshing to hear coming from a UK tipster. So I do appreciate that. But for those of you in the States, if they do get some rain and the ground is softer, as Davey alluded to, you do probably want to bet the horses that have the higher draws, the horse that'll be running closer to the stand side.
correct.
Usually that's what the course has been favoring in the past. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's what you should do if you see there's been rain. But that's not going to be the case in the next 2 days, and I wouldn't be worrying about the draw in the next 2 days.
All right. Speaking of the draw, let's get right into the races. Is currently about 12:30 there in the UK. We're less than 2 hours. Davey, are you excited? Less than 2 hours away from the meet of Royal Ascot. We're going to go ahead. For those of you that are not familiar there in the UK, these are daily racing form past performances. But I'm sure Davey is very familiar with the current odds right now in the betting in the UK, and I have a separate screen that I might not be able to show that I have behind the scenes that we can talk about some of the anti-post betting that is going on right now. But let's go ahead and talk about the first race of the day. It is the traditional first race. It is the Group 1 Queen Anne. They're going 1 mile down the straight. We've seen a lot of famous horses win this race in the past years. Frankel, Tepin from the United States, many other good horses. And Davey, this sure looks like there is going to be a big favorite in this race and a very good horse who's breaking from the very highest draw closest to the stand side, and that is Palace Pier. Talk about this race, please.
I mean, you just said he's breaking from number 11 on the outside. That could be, horses that are widest or lowest or highest in a gate. The horse is an animal, and it will run into the space. And Palace Pier is known for not being a slow horse away from the gate, but he's not the quickest. And so I would expect another slow breakaway from Palace Pier, and I don't think that will impact the result. But it's something to watch. If the rest of the race, if the speed is a certain way, Palace Pier can be caught with its pants down. I'm not sure. It's a race I'm not going to bet myself. The price on Palace Pier is prohibitive. It's 2 to 5. Perhaps the only bet in the race would be a trifecta. There's only really about 4 horses that can possibly win the race in maybe 1 out of 10 times.
You touched on a few things I want to mention. First of all, for those of you watching overseas, either live or watch replays, that you see that in black there on the left side, you see the time form ratings. Palace Pier has been fantastic, one of the highest rated horses in the world. Some say perhaps the best horse in the world right now. Right. That is up for argument. But you can see the 129 and then 128. Excellent time form, U.S.
Well, more importantly, most of the wins have been on sort of good to soft. So,
yes,
soft.
You can see that right there, folks. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you can see all of that. So only in Palace Pier's maiden did it get anything close to firm. So it's not. It may have won on firm, but it's not really used to doing it, and that's when it was younger. So that's the angle that you want to take Palace Pier on if you're going to do it.
So there's a few things working against Palace Pier. I don't know if you can see on the screen there. He's 1 to 5 right now. Let's talk about that because there are commingled pools, betting pools this year at Royal Ascot. Can you please talk about the betting pools and what that means for U.S. handicappers?
Well, there's a co-mingling, and US handicappers, I believe, are involved in a pool which with bettors in Hong Kong.
Correct.
And those guys are, they're betting the farm every time, it seems. I'm looking
Yes.
at the Hong Kong board right now, and it's Palace Pier is 1.3, so
Okay.
1 to 3 on. So what you have to do if you're serious about this, you have to have your Hong Kong tote board up, and you also have to have the UK exchanges. When I mean the exchanges, there are a couple of companies that do it. The most well known is Betfair. I'm not giving them a plug. But most of the serious punters will be playing these races on the UK exchanges in the UK. And now they're able to bet into the UK tote system, which will be commingled with the US and the Hong Kong races. So there are angles, but you have to be following the boards and see see where the money is going. Which brings up another question about UK bookies. A lot of Americans talk about, well, I've checked Odds Checker to see which way the money is going. That's not necessarily so. I mean, the bookies are now reacting to the exchanges, what's
Yes.
going on there, and it's really only useful for maybe UK punters to see that maybe one of the bookies is offering a 25-to-1 shot instead of the rest is 16-to-1 shot, and you can invest your money with them instead. It's not necessarily transparent. It's not a reflection of how much money they've taken. The bookies can, there were horses that were 20-to-1 yesterday. They're now 66-to-1. I mean, the bookies are making huge swings in the market, and they're not because of the money. They're doing it to entice people. They're doing it for all sorts of reasons. So you have to just make sure that you don't take on trust because a horse is shortening or lengthening on a UK bookies board. That's because it's taken money or it's not taking money. They're adjusting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Another thing I want to mention is a type of bet here in the U.S. that most handicappers do not play. And you see on the right side of the screen there at the top, there's something called the swinger bet. The
Right.
swinger, you have to have two horses in the top three. It's very similar to an each way
Yeah.
bet. Davey, are you someone who enjoys the swinger or each way bet?
No, I'm not a swinger, Howard. No, I don't. I don't.
Okay.
I don't play that. I don't play it. Not at all. No. Not
But
a
an
bet.
each way once in a while, correct?
Yeah, you can play in each way, but you have to have the right price for that. Or,
I believe you had a good each way bet on a horse that I tipped on Kentucky Derby weekend called Obligatory, who won at
yeah,
17-1. Is that correct?
I did have obligatory. Yeah. And that was a large thanks to you. So if anyone's watching, folks, Howard comes up with the bombs.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Is there anyone else? Who do you fancy in this race
Well,
other than
this
Pal Spear? Is there anyone that you believe that can upset Pal Spear today?
I'm not sure. I was looking through various, reading the tea leaves. There's a horse called Regal Reality. Now, there's an interesting thing about that. You got to look at the connections. Regal Reality was sold on March 26th. It was sold from a prestigious owner at Cleveley Park, well known. They have the red silks with the sash and the blue cap. And they sold it to a chap called Peter Doan. Now, he's the brother of Fred Doan. And Fred Doan is one of the largest independent bookmakers in the UK, a company called Betfred. So
You see his past performances on the screen there if you'd like to talk more about Regal Reality.
Yeah. Regal Reality is really a group 2 horse, and it's not at Palace Piers level. And for me, this is a purchase where one of the Doan brothers wants to glad hand with the Queen and the connections in Royal Ascot.
Sure.
He bought the horse because he had the money. That's how I see that. I don't think Cheveley Park would be selling the horse if the horse was it's a 6-year-old. They made a bit of a nice profit on it, and that's the end of that. So I would not play that horse. I think you have to look at the O'Brien horses and the tandem. I mean, American connections have been stung by Coolmore and the O'Briens playing tag team with a couple of horses. Flincher, if you can remember.
Of course.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the two. Let's talk about the two O'Brien horses. I have to say, Davey, I'm very interested in one of them to at least finish out the exacta in second and maybe pull off a shocker of between Order of Australia, who'll be written by Ryan Moore, and Lupe Fernandez by Seamus Heffernan. Do you have a preference between one of these two today?
I prefer Order of Australia. and that's because of Ryan Moore riding the horse. But
Let's go ahead. I'm gonna pull up the replay of the Breeders' Cup Mile, which was an absolute shocker to those of us here in the States. Order of Australia is the 15 horse, so I'm not going to show the whole replay. Lupe Fernandez is the 3. I'm going to go ahead and go to the stretch run so we can just watch this because Lupe Fernandez really ran very well. I'm going to freeze it right here. It's a little bit hard to see, but right here is Order of Australia. And Lupe Fernandez is back here making a run from behind. I don't know if you saw this race or would like to talk about it a little bit, Davey.
Well, I mean, to me, this was jockeyship. I mean, Pierre Charles Boudot, won this race. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It was much.
Here's Lupe Fernandez, sorry, in behind, and here's our Australia. Go ahead.
It was a savvy ride, and Bordeaux is suspended right now for some legal issues in France. But to me, he's the best rider in the world at the moment. And that was an example of that. He also had another winner on. I think he had another winner on that day as well. So
I just want to. I'd like to just point out we have a lot of things we'd like to talk about, Dave. I'm going to go ahead and move this along a little bit. I am very, very interested in Lope Fernandez here. He did not run well at all in the Lockenge and Newberry. It was very soft that day, and it almost looked as if they just Ryan Moore sort of just gave up on the horse. I'm not suggesting anything nefarious, but the horse clearly did not like the ground, never really ran much at all. Towards the end of the race, he just just let the horse run on, didn't ask much at all. This horse is much better on firm ground. He's had 2 runs this year as opposed to Order of Australia, who has not run since Hong Kong in December. I wish Lope Fernandez had some more early speed, Davey, because as you mentioned, it does not look like there's a lot of early speed in this race. But I have a feeling that Lope Fernandez is going to run a big race and will clearly be a much bigger price in the market than Order of Australia.
That's because of Ryan Moore going on the other horse. Now, that may be because Ryan Moore selected it, but it may be because the ownership are looking to get a better price on Lope Fernandez, because you have to understand that the ownership of the O'Brien horses, they bet the races. They're not just owners who collect the prize money. They are owners who play the horses and bet the races. So
very interesting. One other horse I just want to mention who breaks from the lowest draw, who was race against Palace Pier, I thought ran pretty well. Do you have any opinion on Top Rank in this race? Do you give any shot at all?
No shot at all. I mean, really, if it's 3 to 4 races, and I would rule out Regal Reality for the reason I said before. It's an ownership jolly, perhaps, and then that leaves the 2 O'Brien horses and Palace Pier, and maybe the move is a box trifecta. The 2 O'Brien horses and Palace Pier. If you get the off chance that Palace Pier gets turned over by one of the 2 O'Brien horses, that's the bet. But as I said earlier, I'm not betting the race. I don't find the value in it.
I understand. I'm going to be playing a straight exacta with Palace Pier over Lupe Fernandez, and perhaps a small exacta the other way around in case something very strange happens. I just know that I'm going to get a much better price on the other Aidan O'Brien. And I don't know about you, Davey, but there are so many times here in the States where a trainer has 2 and the horse that is bet much less ends up actually running very well and beating the stablemate. So that's what I'm looking to play here in the Queen Anne on the first race of the day.
There's a race later in the week where that's going on between with the 2 O'Brien horses, and I'm on the outsider of that Armory. Love has been declared, but we can talk about that later.
We're going to be talking about it. We're definitely going to talk about Armory as well. The second race today, which we're going to touch on just a little bit because there's a fascinating runner in the race. I'm trying to see this. Trying to get this to switch over. For some reason, it's not switching over right now on my screen right now. Hold on 1 second there. A little bit slow to go here. Is the Coventry. The Coventry is a very interesting race. It is 6 furlongs, and there is a fascinating runner as Wesley Ward is running a horse here. He has 8 horses running, Davey, in the Royal Ascot meeting. I apologize. Something's going on with my past performance here, so I apologize. But the number 17 in the Royal Ascot race here at Coventry is a filly for Wesley Ward. Filly has not won this race in over 100 years. And
Yeah.
also, Wesley Ward has not won a race over 5 furlongs. Do you have an opinion on the Coventry Stakes,
Yeah.
which is the second race today?
I like the filly. I've watched the workouts at Keeneland. I like the stride. I like Wesley Ward's confidence about the horse. He's confident about a lot of his horses, but I particularly like the twinkle in his eye about this one. And something. There's a lot of media people. It's sort of murky. No disrespect, but it can be murky in the UK because everyone, the bookies, everyone works for the bookies at some level. The TV personality, they're all on the adverts for the bookies and so on. And so, not to disparage people, but you often hear this sense of that there's a sort of a stampede in the last 2 days to tell everybody that Wesley Ward doesn't win races over 5 furlongs, and therefore you shouldn't be betting it. And subsequent to that, the bookie's price has moved out from 11 to 4, 3 to 1. He's now 11 to 2. It doesn't make any sense because the money hasn't really gone across the counter. So what's going on? And I think it's a good time to take advantage. And I've been betting in this morning into Coffee Maker.
Yeah, I see. I'm currently. Folks do not see it on the screen. I'm currently on Racing Post right now. Alyssa's at 7-1 right now. Amazingly, on Coffee Maker. I'd love to watch the replay of his first race. I apologize. For some reason, my past performances are having an issue right now in that race. But for those of you overseas who are watching, Coffee Maker was very impressive out at Keeneland, which is a track that Wesley Ward usually runs his 2-year-olds in. Wesley Ward has said that Coffee Maker is his best horse that he has running this week at Royal Ascot. He has mentioned that it's not the quickest horse necessarily, but this is a bigger 2-year-old. This is a very well built 2-year-old, very filled out filly, and really reaches out very well with his legs and has a big stride. I am not concerned at all, Davy, about the 6 furlongs with this horse. Whether he classes up and gets the trip is another issue. But boy, maybe it's just the Yankee in me, but I'm very interested at betting Coffee Maker at anywhere at 5-1 or higher.
So so am I. I mean, there's an old truism my father taught me. If there's one filly in the race, bet the filly. And this is one filly in the race, and I don't think it's as much as Wesley Ward keeping his horses apart as him wanting to win the race. There's a horse, an O'Brien, the O'Brien horse. I don't fear the O'Brien horse in this race. I think they had another horse planned for the Coventry called Cadamosto, and it couldn't get. It had a little bit of a setback and an injury. I don't fear that. Frankie Dettori seems to be on the second string of a horse for John Gosden. I'm not fearing that. I think that the 2 horses to fear would be Gisborne and Berkshire Shadow.
If I could, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Davey, but I was able to fix my past performances. Let's just take a quick look at Coffee Maker so people can see what I'm talking about. This is his main breaking race at Keeneland. And what you're going to see here, he's going to be the 5 horse, of course, in those very popular gold, black and yellow silks. And you can see that John Velasquez was asking early. There's a horse that does go in front of him, but you're going to see in this stretch, and you'll see, especially when you watch the head on, look at the stride. Again, this is only a 2-year-old filly. This is a big, scopy horse. I love the way, Davey, that you can see right here, you can see the way he reaches out and hits the ground. Should be able to handle the turf with no problem.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's a turf horse, and it's bred for the turf. And this is the adjustment Wesley Ward has been making. It's not the days when he brought horses like Eye of the Tiger and Cannonball over. He was, but this is he's adjusting his game, and he to me this is a great bet. The more it increases.
I do have one concern. This should be of a special interest to people overseas that probably don't have this information. But if you see on the screen, this is the next race that all of the horses that ran against Coffee Maker, and you see here on the finish there, in this column here, is where these horses finished in their next race. And what you're going to see is none of these horses came out of that race and won their next start, which is usually a bit of a negative.
Mm-hmm.
And the horse that he beat finished 7th in a stake at Churchill. So take that for whatever it's worth. Whether you fancy Coffee Maker's chances or not is up to you, but it is fair to say that he's coming out of a race that has not been overly productive. So that to me is a little bit of a concern. Now, you mentioned a few other horses that you are interested in this race. If you could just reiterate some of those, and we'll take a look at them quickly, Davey.
Yeah, if you're a speed guy, I mean, you really want to be betting Gisborne. I mean, that's the horse that's sort of looking like the fastest, on paper.
For Richard Hannon, running 80 time form last time, and has been going longer, which you would think can only help in this race.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, you also have to understand too. This is a stiff track, meaning there's a little bit of an incline that and if what tracks in the USA have that level, have inclines as much? Maybe Kentucky Downs, maybe, or something.
Kentucky Downs is a little bit of an incline, but that would be the only one.
Exactly. So this horse is used to that. So and at a longer price, the champion jockey is on Berkshire Shadow, which that's got collateral form with Gisborne, as you can see. If you go down and open up, they would have ran. Have you got the form right there? You're looking at it.
Yeah, it's at the very bottom. There's a little bit of a delay.
Right. So
very well bred out of by Dark Angel out of an Oasis Dream there.
Exactly. Now, I mean, most casual punters will be looking for the Gosden horse, the Frankie horse, and the O'Brien horse, and this is where you can get the value. And if I was playing in the States, I'm trying to tailor this for people listening in the States, but I would say Berkshire Shadow, Gisborne, and Coffee Maker would be the try.
And Berkshire Shadow would be a roughie, I believe. I'm not sure what he is right now in the anti-post betting. I have to take a look.
12-1, but I'll tell you what he is on the exchanges. We have, that would be, let me see. Yeah. That's the next. We're looking at.
Again, there's a lot of different betting pools and things to look at. I see about 12-1 right now is what I see as well.
Yeah. For example, it's 13-1 on the Hong Kong International Board. Yeah, exactly, and about 10-12s on the UK books.
Right now, the favorite is Dabab. Any opinion for John and Thadi Gosden?
No, I don't like the jockey. So and jockeys lose races,
Wow, interesting. So he will be, as we like to say in the States, fading the current favorite right now. Listen, it's a big field. You probably want to try to search for a price. I think this is a very interesting competitive race, and boy, it would be fascinating if Wesley Ward can pull off a win here, going 6 furlongs with a filly against the boys.
The favorite on the Hong Kong boards is currently the Acropolis O'Brien 5.1.
Okay.
So, but that you're going to have to watch that to see how things change. Coffee Maker is 10.0, 9-1 right now.
Unbelievable
on the Hong Kong board.
Fly me to Hong Kong right now. I want to put down a wager.
Okay, well, you can bet into the Hong Kong pool with the UK tote right now.
Yes. I will be betting for the home team a little bit in that race. Let's go on to the next race, Davey. Okay. The next race, this is the third race of the day, is the Group 1 King Stand. I believe this is one of the more interesting races of the day, Davey. It's 5 furlongs. They have a big purse. This is a fantastic race, and there is one horse that everyone is talking about that I think I think most people, Davey, most tipsters, most punters are going to have very strong opinions on, and that one way or the other, and that would be the amazing Batash, who's coming off a big layoff. Where do you stand with Batash today?
I'm strongly against Batash for several reasons. Batash likes to go hard early, and in this race there are more than several horses who go hard early also. He won't like that. He can fade late in the race, particularly with the incline at Ascot. The horse is older now. It had an injury, a fracture, not a major thing, but it's first time back. It's how many days since it's ran? It's 300 days.
It did not run since August 21st of last year.
Like 200 and something days. So
yes.
So I don't. I see this much more. It's a Sheikh Hamdan horse, the late Sheikh Hamdan. I think it was his star horse for the last few years. I think it's a sentimental leave the horse run its race. The stable lad, the groom has since retired. A few things aren't. A few things have changed for the horse. It can get fired up during a race. There's going to be a crowd this time. I'm against the horse. This is my first serious win bet of the day, and would be Winter Power. The filly gets £6, and I would be playing Winter Power pretty hard in this race.
Let's talk about Winter Power. Boy, was she impressive. She's only a 3-year-old filly, but she's very quick and was very impressive. Sorry, I have to go back the other direction. I apologize. Of course, this is in post position order that you see on the screen, not by number. So again, I apologize. But Winter Power had a big, as we call a top here in the U.S., a time form rating of 117. Only a 3-year-old filly, gets a weight break, is very quick. She could be anything. It looks like, Davey.
Yeah. This is a missile. This is a guided miss. This is going to blow the field away, I think. It's got a strong jockey, the former champion jockey of Britain, Sylvester de Souza. And the jockey. Another reason on Batash, the jockey for Batash is a former jumps jockey who got the Hamdan job and what have you. But there's a little. I don't think that he's lost a little on his fastball, to use the American term, and I think that's another advantage on Winter Power as well.
Now, you mentioned there's, according to Nick Luckins, the people I've heard, there are anywhere from 7, 8, or 9 early speed horses. Now, this is one of them, but you just think she might be good enough to overcome the pace situation.
Yeah. She'll run away from them in my book, for sure. The horse's form last year, this is some iconic. The trainers are iconic northern trainers. The Easterby family, the Easterby clan. This isn't some sort of small stable. This is a large behemoth northern stable that runs all the big races in the north for decades. There's, they know what they're doing. They knew what they had, and they adjusted problems that the horse had last year, and the horse exploded this year, and it's primed right now. The horse is live right now. It's not. You watch the horse's ears pricked as it was coming to the line in its last win. I mean, the horse is clearly in its time now, and you can't ignore that.
Now, this is, of course, any tipster throughout the entire world is always looking for value. If this horse is bet down, Davey, is there any price in which you would not go and not put a bet? If this horse is bet down to, let's say, 3-1, would you still, at 4s, would you still put a bet on this horse?
Yeah, I bet the horse originally last week at 6s, and it came down to 4. It's now back to sort of 9 to 2 5s. I'm expecting sort of 7. I'm expecting about 7 to 2, and I would still bet that because Batash is still going to be a favorite. I would keep betting the horse up to 3-1. I wouldn't go below 3-1.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
There are 2 horses here from the United States. Both of them are very interesting. Let's talk about those. Extravagant Kid went to Meydan and won the Alquaz Sprint very impressively.
Yeah.
I don't believe that field matches up with this field, in all honesty. But this is a very solid horse. It has Frankie Dettori, which will lower the odds on him. But if it really heats up, I think this is the horse that you want coming from perhaps mid-pack. You see his past performances. He is not a speed horse. He likes to lay just off the pace. He is carrying 131 pounds, but he carried that at Meydan. And the other horse for Wesley Ward, which Wesley Ward has talked about quite a bit recently, is Maven, who you're going to have a very good price at. Maven has run before on the straight in Europe. You can see there in his 2-year-old year, ran at Chantilly and Goodwood. Had a very poor season last year, but came back. We're not going to watch the race. Came back very impressively with his best race ever at Keeneland here in April. He's out of American Pharoah. I was interested in this horse at first. My concern with this horse, Davey, I don't know if you have opinion on either one of the Americans here, is that Maven really does not pass horses, and I'm concerned, based on the pace factor, that he's going to struggle in this race. I much prefer Extravagant Kid of these two. Do you have an opinion of the
Well,
two American horses running the King Stand?
yeah, I don't rate Maven. I think it's just there. It's just there for the ride. Um, Extravagant Kid was the horse that got me over the top to win the Maidan competition. It was an
Oh
18
wow!
at
And
18
you're
to
not
1.
going to bet him to win today? No,
No,
no loyalty, no
yeah,
loyalty, Davy.
the time was last time,
I
and
got it.
that was a weaker race, and you took advantage of it. Why bet a horse that's going to be a quarter of the price because Frankie Dettori is on it, and all the soft money will go to the Dettori horse from the casual punter, and it's not good enough.
I see about sixes or sevens right now on, which means, folks from the United States, when you hear this, when we say sevens, you subtract one, so it's 6 to 1. I'm
Yeah,
seeing somewhere between 6 to 1, 7 to 1 right now on Extravagant Kid.
yeah. That really should be a double figure price. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I
The other
think.
horse I was interested a little bit is Liberty Beach. Do you have an opinion on Liberty Beach?
Yeah, Liberty Beach is I'd love to give you an opinion on Liberty Beach. It's from the Quinn stable. I think the ground's going to be a bit too fast for it. I'm not. A lot of these horses in the UK are not necessarily used to the sort of rattling fast ground week on, week out. So I think Winter Power is primed for that. I'm not getting distracted by anything other than Winter Power. I think that's the first big bet of the day, really.
Okay, very, very strong play for Davy with Winter Power. It's gonna be a fascinating. By the way, I didn't personally talk about Batash. I completely, 100% agree with Davy. I'm looking to bet against Batash today. I think if he wins, it'd be a great story. But I think the odds and the punters have it just right. If this horse was really in his best form, Davy, wouldn't he be more like odds on? So the fact that he's only about 2 to 1 or threes right now sort of convinces to me that he is a bet against today in this
Yeah,
race. It's the
total bet
King
again.
Stand. It'll be going off at approximately 10:40 Eastern time here in the States. Let's talk about the last big race for today, and then we'll get into the rest of the week a little bit.
Okay.
The Group 1 St. James Palace. It is for restricted 3-year-olds. They're going 1 mile, and they are going, as you can see on the screen there, they are going a little bit around of a bend
Yeah.
in this race. I think this is one of the best betting races of the entire
Oh,
day,
most
Davey.
definitely. Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, most definitely it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. There are many horses that can win this race. Who do you fancy in the Group 1 St. James Palace?
I fancy Chindit, uh, and that has taken the money. There's a term the media use, the horse racing media. They say they can talk about, oh, the horse is taking money, this, that, and the rest. But when they say there's been a gamble, that's a whole other level. That tells you that bigger money has been actually coming in and the odds have dropped, and it's not the odds being adjusted by the bookies, but there clearly has been money coming in from all sectors for Chindit. So and I was for that horse at 8 to 1 earlier in the week. I played that. It was a fifth in the 2000 guineas, but it was really drawn in the wrong place again, like we were talking before with clusters. So, as Richard Hannon, the trainer of the horse, said last week in an interview, the horse, for all it knows, thinks it won the 2000 guineas because everything it was racing against it beat. So that to me is the play. But it's very, very difficult. I mean, there are 6 horses that could possibly win that race, and you have to be aware of all of them. Poetic Fleur, Lucky Vega, Chindit, Thunder Moon, Battleground, and La Barossa. And really, I mean, if I had the big time money, I would be boxing those 6 in trifectas to try and find one, and hopefully getting La Barossa in there to soup it up. But Chindit is the horse for me.
I watched very carefully this replay. We're not gonna put it up on the screen of the Kipco 2000 guineas that Poetic Flare won.
Yeah,
It looked like Chindit. There's a dip, I believe, in Newmarket. Didn't
yeah,
handle the dip very well.
yeah,
But this horse was really coming on late.
yeah.
If the pace does heat up a little bit, this horse looks like he is a big time closer. And Poetic Flare, of course, will be the favorite in this race. You also mentioned Lucky Vega. Lucky Vega, this is his last race. I'm going to try to find Lucky Vega, the 6th horse,
Yeah.
for Harrington and Shane Foley. For those of you who do not know, this is Lucky Vega's last race ever. He's going to be standing in Australia. So they're going to be emptying the petrol, as you might say, on Lucky Vega today, you would think.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is an example of what we talked about earlier. This is a Chinese ownership. I mean, they've had a winner for John Sadler. I think Foley went over to California for Santa Anita to win for the same connections. And they're sending the horse to Australia because the money is in Asia and Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, Australia. This is where the bigger prize money is. So the connections here are, taking a horse out that potentially could race on for a year or two and getting it into stud and getting it over there. So
I see Lucky Vega is approximately 7s right now. And
yeah,
boy, you are right about Chindit. Chindit has taken a lot of money in the market in the last 24 hours. I've been watching carefully. From what I see, Chindit might be second choice in this race.
Yeah, it could very well be. It could even go off favorite if there's a real plunge. It really could, because Poetic Fleur has been racing, maybe over racing. So we have to see about that.
He has had several runs already. Let me go back to Poetic Fleur right there. He's already had 4 runs this year. If this were a U.S. horse, it would be shocking with all these runs. Usually you don't see that in the United States. His run May 1st, May 16th, May 22nd. Is it possible that he's a bit over the top?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think it is. It's still a potential winner, but that's one of the reasons I would be downplaying the horse.
Now, O'Brien's got two in here, I believe. Let me get to them. If you want to talk about the Joseph O'Brien, he's got Thunder Moon, who, from what I understand, had some major issues pre-race at Newmarket and was a complete disaster in that race. Also he has, I believe, another runner as well. I apologize. Does he not? I could be wrong.
There's several. There's the Aidan O'Brien and Joseph O'Brien issue. So
okay. Why don't you talk a little about Thunder Moon, Davey?
Thunder Moon is a real threat, particularly on the firmer ground. And this is a horse that I was thinking was going to win the won the premier race in the previous year, the National Stakes in Ireland, and I was expecting it to be the big horse this year. And so between that and Chindit, you gotta ignore Joseph O'Brien at your peril.
You think he can bounce back? You're getting a nice price, somewhere about 10s, correct?
Yeah, you're getting probably more than that. It's a very serious threat to Chindit. It can come fast, it can come late. It's a difficult race, though. This is a difficult race. This is, as I said, there's a short list of 6. I favour Chindit. I respect Thunder Moon, and I can't ignore Aidan O'Brien as well with Battleground, because he's also put a rabbit in the race in Ontario, and you have to be careful when they throw rabbits in races.
Yeah, I'm very interested in Battleground, not because he ran well here in the States, but again, he also struggled in that 2000 Guineas. Much prefers firmer ground. This horse is bred to the 9s by Warfront out of a Galileo mare Found, who is absolutely, we'll just go, I can show for those in the UK, I know you're familiar with Found. Found won $7.6 million US. There's the past performances of Found, which is absolutely outstanding. Lost to Highland Reel, who is a very nice horse in the Breeders' Cup turf. I think Battleground is in for a nice performance today as well. Now, on this bend, from what I understand, the lower draws have a little bit of an advantage than the higher draws. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, naturally they would. On a bend, it's the shortest way around. Yeah.
Sure. But that would help Mustadaf, who also is a very unexposed, interesting horse for John Godsden on the inside, the 8.
Yeah. But not for me.
Okay.
Yeah, not for me. I mean, the one I would think would have a chance of blowing it up would be La Barossa if it gets the ground. You see, you have to look at the ground, the ground the horses have been running at, and this horse hasn't really had firm ground, and it needs it. Regularly had firm ground.
Yes, won his first 2 starts on good ground, going 7 furlongs, and then
And now when it
and also second as well at Newmarket.
right. So this, but lately it hasn't had the ground. So I think these are when you get different results when you have ground like this, that when horses haven't been getting the ground. So that could blow up a trifecta potentially.
La Barossa looks like you might get somewhere in the 20s, Davy.
Yeah, you could, and that could blow it up. I mean,
okay, so folks here in the U.S., remember the Davy Lane is throwing out what they call a roughie over there in the U.K., a long shot, La Barossa. I'll tell you what, getting any Godolphin horse, Davy, at 20+1, I'm very interested.
Yeah. Particularly underneath. Again, I'm trying to think. My win bet is Chindit, but I respect Thunder Moon. I fear Thunder Moon, and I fear Battleground. And potentially a longer shot could get into the mix, but again, it's 6 horses, and it's very hard to break them all down.
Absolutely.
But Chindit is my favorite horse in that.
Very quickly before we get on to some racing the rest of the week, do you have any other opinions? I do have the past performances up. Do you have any other opinions on any of the handicap races later in today's card?
Yes, I do.
Which race would you like to talk about? The 5, 6, or 7?
I'll quickly go through all 3.
All right, very quickly, and then we'll get some races later this week.
The next race is another example, the 5 o'clock, and it's Rachel Blackmore, jumps rider, won the Grand National, has been booked to ride for Emmett Mullins, not the Willie Mullins Power Stable. It's another one of these Brexit sort of COVID situations of people coming over with meaning, and that's now close to favoritism. However, my long shot of the day would be a horse in that 5 o'clock race, would be a horse called Rashun. It's a horse ridden by William Buick for a connection called Marwan Kukash. He's got 2 in the race. It wins every year when it's firm ground, when it gets firm ground.
There are the past performances. I apologize if you want to talk about Rashun.
Rashun If you look, it wins once a year when it gets good to firm going. And I think
Newberry last year. Otherwise, obviously, I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but just so folks can understand who are not familiar, you see the ratings here of the ground. You see good, soft, and then you see soft, and then obviously this run on July 19th, where the horse won a 14-1. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my logic on that. And also with the connection, it ran in the Chester Cup. The connection for that is a larger than life character at Chester, a guy called Dr. Marwan Kukash. He's actually a Palestinian refugee who became an engineer in the UK. He owns a 4-star hotel in the Liverpool area. He's entered horses in the Melbourne Cup before, and he's always at Chester, and he always loves to win all the races at Chester, the big races. Chester was closed down. I think he was running his horses in the Chester Cup to get them primed. I think he's looking for the opening day where there's going to be some crowd, about a quarter of capacity at Ascot.
12,000, I believe.
Yeah, 12,000. And I think with William Buick booked for a shrewd trainer, Ian Williams, this trainer is a dual-purpose trainer, has horses over the fences and on the flat. And he's got 2 in this race, and that's always a clue from me, that when a trainer and a connection puts 2 in a race, I'm always aware of what are they up to. And in that respect, even though Rashun would have been 20-1 earlier in the week and is now as big as 66-1, that's not because of money. It's the bookie trying to entice people. I think firm ground, that's the spot play, the bomb play of the day, Rashun.
That would be tremendous if you get that horse. That would make my obligatory. I also liked Mishrif, by the way, that I gave out in the Saudi Cup at 19-1. That I was very proud of this year. But that if Rashun comes through today, wow! There's another horse in one of the later 2 races, and then we're gonna move on to Wednesday.
Very quickly, the last 2 races I would play an exactor in the 5:35, the Wolferton, Patrick Sarsfield, and Fox Tal. And in the last race, the handicap race, the 6:10, I would play an exactor with actually the first and second in the market, the second favorite, Sadia, who's owned by a flamboyant American owner, Rich Ritchie, which you can make that name up, Rich Ritchie, and and Global South, Global Storm. So I would have that in an exactor. Patrick Sarsfield, Foxtel in the 5:35, the Wolferton, and 6:10. Saldier and Global Storm.
Okay. We appreciate those picks. Listen, some of these handicap races are also very difficult. We could talk on forever.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and talk about, and you have to give me just a minute here. So I'm going to let you talk for just about 30 seconds to a
Yeah.
minute so I can switch the screens. But let's talk about the card on Wednesday just a little bit. I want to focus especially on the Prince of Wales Stakes, which is the only Group 1 of the day. Can you
Right.
talk in general about the Wednesday card in general as I set up the screen?
Okay. Well, we got 7 races on the Wednesday, and I have strong preferences in 3 of them. I have an interesting bomb potential in one of the race, and then in three remaining races, I have absolutely no clue what's going to happen. I'll go through the first. I'm very keen on the favourite Wesley Ward's in the Queen Mary Twilight Gleaming. I think it's the best Wesley Ward horse he sent over. I have no idea about the next 2 races on the card, the Queen's Vase and the Duke of Cambridge. I'm completely in the dark about who's going to turn up in that. In the Prince of Wales, the 4th race on the day, I like Armory very strongly. Love is now the favourite because Ryan Moore was booked, but I think it's first time out, and I think they're looking at Love for targets later in the year, and I'm not even surprised if the Coolmore people use this as a prep race, as absurd as that sounds, because I think Armory is after seeing
I'm sorry,
Armory.
sorry to interrupt you. So we have a comment from Brad Anderson. Brad, thank you. As we have more people joining the show, especially here in the United States. Brad wants to give thanks to you, Davey, for sharing your
No problem, Brad.
insights. We appreciate that. Again, if you're watching live, please make sure you chat on the right side of the screen as we are only a little over 1 hour away from the start of the race at Royal Ascot. We're going to go for about another 20 minutes or so for those, and then I'm going to go ahead and put this up on YouTube as a replay so people in the States could watch. But let's briefly talk about Twilight Eclipse if we can a little bit, going back now that I have the PPs up here.
Yeah,
Davey, or
yeah,
Twilight Gleaming,
yeah.
excuse me. His
Twilight.
race, by the
Yeah,
way, this is for Stone Street Stables, very popular
yeah.
stables here in the U.S. Rachel Alexandra, probably a horse that many people know, comes to mind. Twilight Gleaming's first race on the turf, and this was at Belmont.
Yeah.
Very impressive. You see the one there in the Stone Street on the inside. This looks like a very quick horse, Davey.
It really does. I mean, it's quick away from the gate. It was well drawn in this race, but it was clearly knows how to get out of the gate, which was what Wesley Ward does. I mean, he puts them through practice at the gates, right? I mean, this is one of his tricks. Time and again, the horses are put into gates and they practice coming out of the gates. You know.
You can see he's just absolutely in hand on a hammerlock here as he
Yeah.
goes
Yeah.
to the wire. One could have won by 10
Yeah.
and wins in 56 and 2, which is a very quick time for a
Yeah.
2-year-old at Belmont.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of exotic markets in the UK betting, and one of them is how far will a horse win by, you know, and this you'd be wanting to find out at what price for Twilight Gleaming to win by 5, 6, 7, 8 lengths.
Oh,
You know,
wow. Do you think
yeah,
he's that strong a chance?
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
He is right now, as I see him. You're getting about fours, which is about 3-1 as of right now. So, if there is an exotic bet of how much Twilight Gleaming is going to win by,
yeah,
and I would expect that in the market he'll come down. You think, Davey?
yeah. I think it goes off like 15-8 or something like this.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah,
Wesley Ward, another very strong possibility there
yeah,
in that race. Let's go ahead and talk about the Prince of Wales.
right.
By the way, there are several races. There are 4 races here at Royal Ascot that are what we call win and they're in. These are races that if you win the race, you get an automatic qualifier into the Breeders' Cup, which this year, Davey, in the States is at Del Mar in California
Mhm.
in November. One of those win and you're ins was the Queen Anne, which was the first race of the day today that we talked about. The next one is the Prince of Wales Stakes. This is for older horses. Let me go ahead and switch the past performances. This is the 4th race of the day, going off at 12:20 Eastern
Yeah,
Standard Time. Excuse me, 11:20 Eastern Standard Time here in the States. This is for older horses. They're going the classic distance of 1.25 miles or 10 furlongs. It's a huge purse. You would expect that at least one or two of these horses, at least we hope as United States fans, would come over here to the States and run in the Breeders' Cup. It's a small field, but is a fantastic field. Let me just go ahead, Davey, if I may,
Yeah,
and just briefly scroll through. You have Ardira,
yeah,
who won the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, who, by the way, I had a nice win bet on. I was ecstatic when this horse got up uh, in November
yeah,
at Keeneland. I thought this horse had a big shot and ran down a U.S. Superstar who's been retired in Rushing Fall, who is a very good horse for Chad Brown. You have Desert Encounter, who's a big long shot.
yeah,
Then you have Armory, a very interesting horse, 3-1 morning line for Aiden O'Brien, who absolutely freaked very impressively at your track, Chester, last time.
yeah,
You have Lord North, who is in very fine form, winning very well the Dubai Turf in Maidan, and who ran a good fourth to Tarnawa here in
yeah,
the States last year. You have Mai Oberon, who's a long shot. And then you have a fascinating horse for Aiden O'Brien, Love, a filly taking on the boys, not only winning, but absolutely destroying her competition. In the
yeah.
last 3 runs, she's won by a total of 18 and a quarter lengths. However, this is her first race of the year coming off of a very long layoff. So,
Yeah.
Davey, who do you fancy in a very good rendition of this race?
Yeah, I fancy Armory despite the so-called second jockey getting on the horse. I think Love has been uh, Love has been discussed as being aimed initially for a Group One in Ireland. The following week, the Pretty Polly, and all of a sudden it shows up. It shows up here. I think they realize it's got the ground is good, and they want to give the horse a good run out on the ground and see where it lands. But I think the hot horse here is Armory. They sent this horse to the Cox Plate in Australia last year. It only got beat because the ground turned really heavy. If they're looking at Del Mar later in the fall, we're talking the same type of quirky track. So, and it won at Chester on the small quirky track. I don't like Lord North at all. It won impressively at Maidan last time, but it bled. So that puts me right off. And
that's what they were saying, that perhaps Lord North would be much better with Lasix, although he did not have Lasix in Dubai, Davey.
right, but it did bleed, and that just concerns me. And I've never seen it as a top draw horse, just a sort of borderline Group 2, Group 1 horse. And I think Armory is a Group 1 animal, a top Group 1 animal.
Armory would be what we call in the States sort of the now horse. This is the up and comer, the horse that could explode on the scene and be the next superstar. You think?
Well, I think so. If they sent it to Australia last year for the the Australian Weight for Age Classic,
Sure, the Cox Plate. Yep.
Yeah, if they sent it for that, that's what they were thinking.
And you might get third choice in the market, yes, on Armory.
Yeah. I mean, I played Armory at 11-4 earlier in the week when I didn't think Love was going to be declared, and Love has been declared, and now Armory is 10-3, and that's a fantastic price because I don't like the favorite. I think Love is just going there for his first spin out. The Coolmore team aren't afraid to put the horse into a top race as a prep, as a warm up. They're not afraid to do that, So
I just want to recognize. Sorry to interrupt you. I want to recognize people that are commenting. Tom Wright. Tom, we did mention Palace Pier early in the show. Again, those of you just joining us here in the States, because it is early, we'll be ending the show in approximately 10 to 15 minutes, and then I will immediately be putting a replay of our podcast up on YouTube, and you'll be able to scroll through and watch. But just very quickly, Davey, for Tom, who asked the question, your opinions on Palace Pier again in the first race today?
Yeah, I'm not playing the race because the price of Palace Pier is prohibitive, but it can get beat because the horse hasn't run on the fast ground so much. Maybe just in its maiden race, it breaks from gate 11. It has tendency to break slowly, and that could be exacerbated by coming out of 11. And with a tag team of the O'Briens, it's possible that the horse could get pipped. So I'm not playing the race because I'm unsure. I like Order of Australia. I like Lope Fernandez, but I'm not sure I like them enough to take on Palace Pier. So my bet, if anything, if I was advising a bet, I'd play a box trifecta.
And Tom, just to let you know, I think Palace Pier is gonna be very tough, but I'm very interested, Tom, in Lope E. Fernandez underneath, and possibly at a huge upset if things really go his way, because this horse absolutely wants firm ground. That's what he's gonna get. So, any opinion on Adira in this spot, or Love, who's gonna be the favorite
No,
in the Prince of Wales?
Adira is it's his first time out. I listened to an interview with the trainer of Adira, and from reading between the lines, I don't think the horse is ready. And the horse is only in the race because the race is cut up, meaning that it's got a very small take in the race. There's hardly any runners really, so it's basically a chance to open up the airways,
Sure.
the tubes of the horse. So
Perhaps clunk up for a slice and get a nice piece of the purse as well.
Exactly. You may as well take the money if you're going to roll in for a third or fourth. Yeah,
Better
exactly.
than just a workouts in the morning, obviously.
Yeah,
And then what about Love? Love is going to be. I'm not sure if she's going to go off the favorite, but boy, was she impressive last year, especially.
She's the favorite now. She's the 13-8 favorite now, ahead of Lord North. So
is it just the layoff, Davy, that concerns you?
Yeah. The layoff. Yeah. No, not just the layoff. I actually think Armory has got a horse. I think one's. I think they're comparable, and I think Armory not just has had a run, but had a very, very good run. I mean, that run at Chester, the horse was going through the gears. It was very smooth.
So for those of you that, again, there's a screen that you folks do not see that I have behind the scenes. The official rating that I see for these horses is Lord North at 123, Love at 122, and Armory 120. But I think it's fair to say that 120 is on the way up. Is absolutely not that Love and Lord North can't improve, but Armory is absolutely the horse, it appears, Davy, that has the biggest upside, along with Love. But of course, Love is off a big layoff. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that totally.
So that's the Prince of Wales Stakes. Again, there's many other races occurring tomorrow that we don't have the time to get into today. But let me just, out of respect, Davey, is there any other horses tomorrow in race 5, 6, or 7 in the handicap races, including race 6, by the way, the Windsor Castle, which I believe is that the race that has 43 horses, Davey? I believe.
No, not anymore.
Okay, I apologize. I know there's a race this week that has, was it 46 horses I saw? Something unbelievable.
They won't be declared. I think we're looking at 30 horse maximum. Yeah.
Only 30, huh? Okay.
Only 30. But looking tomorrow on those final 3 races, I do have plays in the 5th and 6th, not the 7th.
Sure, the 5th race is a 1 mile turf handicap. Go ahead.
That's a completely ridiculous race. That's a charge of the light brigade, really, at some level. Hard to figure. But there's a horse I like there with, again, with this Brexit COVID angle from Ireland, you're picking on a smaller connection. There's a horse called Bowerman, Bowerman. Now that horse won in Doha earlier this year, so they sent that horse over to Qatar. And when you go there, you're playing against the Qatari sheikhs who have a lot of money invested in horses that they bring over to win their own local races. So its maiden race, it was second to Stradivarius.
There you go, Davey. There are the past performances. Sorry, it took me a second to bring them up.
Yeah, I think it's a quality. It's sort of bit of quality in the breeding as well. Dutch art, I like that horse at a price. So, that's a price play for me. And in the Windsor Castle, the race subsequent to that, the next race, I very much like Wesley Ward's Golden Bell with John Velasquez on board. And that's the second priced, Frankie Dettori is on Ruthlin, the favorite in that race. I like the other Wesley Ward at 10-1.
So he's got 2, I know, and again, it'll take me a second to scroll down and find these. I apologize for that. There's Ruthin, who is a field horse for Dettori, who also won very impressively at Keeneland, but it wasn't quite as fast a time as some others. I know a lot of these horses have been working out against each other. And the other horse, I'm sorry, for Wesley Ward.
Golden Bell, Johnny Velasquez.
Right there you go. Also won at Keeneland on the dirt. Nicely bred. More bred for dirt on the male side by Holy Bull, but it is out of a lemon drop kid mare, Peggy May. Exactly. And it has a bullet work on the turf as well.
Yeah, exactly. This is what I'm looking at. And there's also a workout at Keeneland I saw with Golden Bell, and I was very impressed with that.
I was just looking at the breeding. You can see there on the breeding that the dam has very nice turf breeding. Has some of the siblings include Doc Boy, who won 157,000, and who is a stake runner on the turf. So obviously, this horse probably has a little more turf breeding than the other Wesley Ward. It's very interesting. And there's nothing wrong with Johnny V. Listen, he's not there for the party. I can tell you that. He's there to win races.
Exactly. I mean, Wesley Ward will split things up, and he was initially hoping to get Ortiz and Rosario, and there was this, that, and the rest. But Velasquez came over, and the reason he ultimately bought the ticket to come over is because he was offered certain key rides. And I think he would have. I think he would have had a choice, and I think he chose this one.
So, Davey, let me go ahead and put us both on somewhat full screen. I think it's a great way to end our day. And again, I cannot thank you enough for coming on the show, Davey, as we are less than 1 hour, folks, less than 1 hour to the meet at Royal Ascot. Let's talk about one more race, then we'll go ahead and close the show. Okay. On Thursday, especially, what an unbelievable horse. If you do not know about Stradivarius, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to let Davey opine about Stradivarius. This is an incredible horse who has won the Ascot Gold Cup 3 times, going for an unprecedented 4th winning in a row of this race. This is a staying superstar, Stradivarius. Can you talk a little bit, especially to our U.S. fans, about the horse Stradivarius itself and then the race specifically on Thursday?
Okay, well, Stradivarius is a small horse. It doesn't, you don't see much smaller than him, and you wouldn't think it was a horse that was going to get the distance. But it must have the right lung capacity, what have you, and it's a horse that's won the premier staying races in the UK, and by doing so, it's put itself out of the market to get in the big money races overseas, mainly the Melbourne Cup. So it's sort of a victim of its own success in some ways. So. I think it's done. I think the horse is very beatable. I'll be taking it off. I
believe he's about odds on. You're getting close to 2s right now, perhaps 1.7 around there. So for U.S. bettors, he's about even money as of right now, perhaps closer to 4 to 5 at post time, I would say.
Yeah, I'm gonna take him on, and I'm gonna take him on with Santiago, the O'Brien horse. He gets a good ground. Is 12 to 1. I would keep my eye open for a bomb underneath in Rip Van Lip's 100 to 1 shot for maybe pulling out, if there's a trifecta play for the Americans to think about. But I'll be mostly playing a single bet with Santiago. One of the reasons to add to that is that the Coolmore people they supplemented Serpentine into the race at a fee, not a considerable fee, like £30,000 or something like this. That may not be because they think the horse is going to win. It may be because they want to set the race up for Santiago. That's how I look at it.
Interesting. Now there's a horse that was very impressive in this race on Thursday who ran Dubai called Subjectivist, who wired the field. The thought here is the horse is going to try to do it again. This horse has some early speed, can run some pretty quick internal splits. But I would say that the form of that race coming out of Dubai, I'm not sure how strong a field that was. Do you give Subjectivist, who looks to be the second choice, a chance to beat Stradivarius in this race on Thursday?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Is it more of just not classy enough? Is it what you'd say?
Not classy enough, and it's had its mission in life, and that was winning the race in Meydan, and that to me is it. I'm very strong on Santiago.
Another horse I would just like to tip a bit, who I've heard a little bit of buzz, is the Danica O'Brien horse, Empire of the Sun, who's very well bred. This horse is not. This is the 11 horse that is running on Thursday. I don't know. I haven't seen final pass performances. I'm assuming Empire of the Sun is running. This horse has not gone beyond 1.5 miles, but is bred very well. And I've heard some good things about Emperor of the Sun. Do you know anything about this horse or have any opinions on that horse?
It's actually the 9 horse, because in the final analysis an hour ago, the 13 horses were declared.
Okay, so it'll be the 9 on Thursday.
Yeah, the 9 horse Tiger Moth was withdrawn. So, which explains why Serpentine was supplemented 2 days before. You know, so that tells me the O'Briens are working on something. You know,
There's
and
also
you know,
Spanish Mission in this race as well, I would assume. Is that correct?
yeah, Spanish Mission is kept in the race, and that's interesting. For me, that's a horse that could win the race if they turned on all of the afterburners, but the horse's main aim is the Melbourne Cup. The Melbourne Cup gives you prize money of about 10 times what the Ascot Gold Cup is. So this horse, despite having credentials and despite being at a reasonable, you know, a playable price, I think somewhere 8-1 range, and the fact that I've played the horse a lot and won with the horse, I won't be playing it because the mission for the horse is November in Melbourne. And if it wins this race, that mission is done with. So you have to be cynical on these respects. You have to know that where the horse is going.
Davy, if the rains do come, and I've heard possibility of up to an inch of rain, perhaps, if you get a downpour, how would that affect Stradivarius on Thursday?
In the past, people have assumed that was going to impact the horse, but it has ran on the soft ground and won impressively. So it shouldn't bother it. It shouldn't bother the horse.
I'll tell you and myself and a lot of people try to beat this horse, but every time you try to beat this horse, I'll tell you what, he just comes back and run huge. It's one of those races that you're probably going to bet against, but if he wins, you got to be happy anyway, because what a story that would be.
Yeah, you have to respect it. You have to respect it for sure.
Absolutely.
But I think the time is now. I don't think it wins four in a row. I think Yates is a horse that did win this race 4 in a row, and I don't think Stradivarius will reach that mantle. And,
if he does win Thursday, do you put him ahead of Yates in terms of the all-time great stayers?
You have to put him at a par if he does win. But then again, if it rains and that diminishes some of the other horses and he wins in a sloppy race because of the rain, you're kind of like, well, you know, I don't know. Yeah.
So, Davey, we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Do you have any closing comments? Again, there are other races. Any other horses you'd like to tip later in the week, or any closing comments for those viewers? You're the fellows out there in the UK, or any other opinions in general about Royal Ascot this week?
Yeah, what one horse I have played strongly is the next day. The race hasn't been, the declarations for the race haven't been made, but the Coronation Stakes on the Friday, I'm very hot on 10-1 shot Snow Lantern.
Okay, Snowland, good.
Snow Lantern. And this is a horse that Americans may be familiar with because the Hannon horse, if you have the breeding there, or you've gone off the
no, I do not have. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's a horse I'm very, very hot on Friday. On Saturday, I don't really have anything lined up. But Snow Lantern in the big race on Friday is my pick, and that will come down. That's 10-1 right now. That will go off at about 6 or 7, maybe something 13-2, something like this. But it'll come down because a lot of the horses that are currently in the race will be taken out of the race, and the market will be adjusted accordingly. So UK players have a chance to bet anti-post if they're savvy enough to know the information about what's coming and going, you know.
Terrific. Well, we appreciate your insight. Again, on the bottom of the screen is information about my race day blog, which Davey is a part of. And Davey, I greatly appreciate that. If you're interested at all, if you're in the UK or overseas in betting American races, I have a blog that's well worth your dollar or your pound or whatever currency you'd be using. Again, you'd get it once a week on Saturdays. Gives you a lot of information on American racing, and also a portion of that money goes to the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation to help horses that retire here in the United States, to take care of them. Davy Lane, I cannot thank you enough. You've been an absolute pleasure. You've given us some great information, some roughies perhaps, some long shots to be interested in during this week. Any closing thoughts on Royal Ascot or anything else you'd like to discuss? Or where people can find you, whether it be on Twitter or anywhere else?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, but I don't really pigeonhole myself in the racing category. But you can find me. The link is on Howard's tweet earlier. I just want to say thank you, Howard, because this what you're doing is a great service to the game, because you're genuine. You put the information out, you put the time in to get the information out. This broadcast itself, you're full of all of the factoids and trivia that I wasn't necessarily expecting you to have, so you've been well prepared, and it's just been a pleasure to engage with you. I'm not sure I was as prepared as I could have been. I've been amazingly busy for the last few days, but I'm up to speed as best I can. I'll be opening a cold one in the next 5 minutes and enjoying the race.
I have a British breakfast planned with the eggs and toast and some sausage and some other things to get ready for Ascot. I thought you were tremendous. Again, thank you very much. And Dave, if you could just stay on just for a minute when the show is over, even when I take you off screen, so I can speak with you. But again, Davy Lane, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Davy. I'm going to go ahead and take you off screen and wrap up the show. I appreciate you having me on today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Howard.
All right, take care. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Davy Lane from the UK. Fantastic. Hopefully, we've been able to help you with Royal Ascot today and this meet. My next show will be on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll be going over a late pick 5 on Saturday this weekend. Thank you very much for joining me. This has been the HHH Racing Podcast and your host, Howard Kravitz. Thanks for joining me, and good luck in all your bets at Royal Ascot. Good day, everyone.